Across the globe, there are billionaires that have shaped their worlds with questionable methods as to how they truly acquired their wealth. These are titans of industries with businesses and net worths running in billions of dollars, ranging from billion-dollar crypto scams to misleading hedge fund managers and wannabe tech innovators. These are the stories of billionaires who did crooked things for money. The world of wealth and luxury is not as it seems, as you will discover when we explore the stories of 11 billionaires who are currently rotting in jail. Alan Stanford. Alan Stanford is one of the billionaires in jail with one of the most dramatic criminal stories in the realm of high finance. Born in 1950 in Texas, Stanford had a lower middle-class upbringing, which was a stark contrast to the life of affluence he lived when he got older. Stanford was worth $2.2 billion during his active years in the financial industry, a net worth he accumulated upon the tears of investors who had their money taken away by the fraudster. Stanford rubbed shoulders with some of the most influential people in society, owning an island in Antigua and Barbuda, alongside two newspaper businesses and his very own cricket tournament that awarded thousands of dollars to winning teams. This billionaire now sits in jail with a sentence of 110 years, which is just half of what the prosecutors really wanted him to get. Stanford had his educational background in finance at Baylor University before starting out with real estate and fitness centers, in which he had very limited success. However, Stanford set his eyes on the financial sector, establishing the Stanford International Bank in Antigua, which he sold to wealthy men and women as a haven for investors seeking robust returns. He promised certificates of deposit with crazy interest rates, one that beats those of traditional U.S. banks. This attracted investors from all over the world looking to make billions of dollars from the deal he promised. This made Stanford very rich, as his financial empire had amassed assets that totaled over $7 billion. Upon this financial success, Stanford was able to fund his lavish lifestyle, but underneath it all was a massive Ponzi scheme, one that would cost his investors millions of dollars. Stanford misrepresented the safety and oversight of the investments, deceiving over 50,000 clients about the professional management of their funds. All Stanford was doing was simply diverting the funds from SIB depositors to finance his personal businesses and wealthy lifestyle. In 2009, Stanford was exposed when the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission charged him with fraud. It was shocking that one man could pull such a feat, presenting false data just to get the money of wealthy investors seeking mouth-watering ROIs. Stanford was convicted on 13 counts, which included conspiracy, mail fraud, and wire fraud. Stanford's plan was so elaborate as he had orchestrated a 20-year investment fraud scheme. The court made sure Stanford's fate was sealed, as he was sentenced to 110 years in prison, guaranteeing he would spend the rest of his life in jail. But unlike Stanford, who lied to investors from around the world and stole billions of dollars, this man was on the other side of the financial market, leveraging sensitive information to make up to $75 million in profit. Raj Rajaratnam. This is Raj Rajaratnam, a Sri Lankan-American former hedge fund manager and founder of the Galleon Group, a hedge fund management firm based in the city of New York. Raj was listed as the 262nd richest man in the United States, according to the Forbes list of the 400 richest Americans at the time. He has been described by the government as the modern face of illegal insider trading. This billionaire was prosecuted because he was discovered to have used a network of insiders to obtain illegal tips on some of the biggest companies in the world, like Goldman Sachs, Hilton, Google, and Intel. Raj's hedge fund is valued at $3.7 billion in 2009, which came down from $7 billion in 2008. Raj has featured among U.S. financial managers in the book called The New Investment Superstars and is also known to invest majorly in technology and healthcare companies. Raj's scandal also involved a former Goldman Sachs director and ex-boss of McKinsey Management Consulting Group, Raja Gupta, who was investigated for allegedly giving tips to Rajaratnam. Raj was exposed through secretly taped conversations he held with Raja Gupta and other associates that aided in the criminal process. While the recordings were extremely damaging to Rajaratnam and his associates, only Raj and 3 others were convicted at trial. Raj was sentenced to 11 years in prison and fined a combined criminal and civil penalty of over $150 million. The government said he switched so much money around within his multi-billion-dollar funds that the movement of price in individual stocks could be traced to his trading whims. His case is reported to have been the largest hedge fund insider trading case in United States history. After he was arrested, Galleon's investors requested the withdrawal of $1.3 billion, which caused the fund to close for good. Looking at the world of cryptocurrencies, we find a man who used this modern phenomenon to commit one of the biggest financial misconducts in the United States. Sam Bankman-Fried. Sam Bankman-Fried emerged as a prominent figure in the cryptocurrency world. Born on March 6, 1992, in Stanford, California, he is the son of two Stanford Law School professors. He demonstrated interest at an early age for math and logic, eventually leading him to earn a degree in physics from MIT. Even though he had a flair for science, it was his involvement in the financial sector that changed everything. Sam ventured into 2017. He founded Alameda Research before launching FTX in 2019. FTX was valued at $32 billion after gaining traction for its innovative features and user-centric approach, while Sam's fortune skyrocketed to an estimated $16 billion, placing him among the world's youngest billionaires. While it seemed on the surface that cryptocurrency had changed Sam's life forever, a lot of shady business was going on underneath the surface. FTX was entangled in financial misconduct. Sam had organized multiple fraudulent schemes, which included the misappropriation of customer funds to cover losses at Alameda Research, while also financing personal expenditures. Many people lost their money, including customers and investors alike. Everything started getting exposed in late 2022 when FTX was faced with a liquidity crisis, prompting customers in their numbers to withdraw their sums from the exchange. The company immediately filed for bankruptcy, and Sam resigned as the CEO. This was immediately followed by legal repercussions, as Sam was arrested in the Bahamas before being extradited to the United States to face charges that included conspiracy, wire fraud, and money laundering. He was convicted of these charges in March 2024 and was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison and asked to forfeit $11 billion in assets. Sam Bankman is going to be in jail for a long time, with his release date set for 2049. But some billionaires had it rather easier than others, managing to come out of jail with their billionaire status unscathed. Thomas Kwok. Thomas Kwok is one of the billionaires to have retained his fortune after spending several years in jail. With a net worth of $1.9 billion, Thomas Kwok and his two brothers inherited Hong Kong real estate investment from Sun Hung Kai Properties in 1990 from their father, Kwok Tak Sang. After co-chairing the company from 2011 to 2014, he was charged to court by the Independent Commission Against Corruption and found guilty of bribing the former Chief Secretary Raphael Hui, receiving a 5-year prison sentence and being made to pay a fine of $500,000. Raphael Hui was Hong Kong's chief secretary for administration at the time, and it is known that Thomas gave him $1.1 million in order to gain government favor. Hui, however, was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison for accepting the bribe, alongside two other businessmen. After the verdict was announced, Kwok stated his immediate resignation as chairman, managing director, and executive director of Sun Hung Kai, and said he would appeal the conviction. But his appeal to the Court of Appeal and Hong Kong Court of Final Appeal were dismissed. Kwok's family remains one of the richest business dynasties in Asia, with credits for building many of the skyscrapers that define Hong Kong's skyline. The family's stakes in Hong Kong's largest real estate company by market value total a combined fortune of more than $30 billion. This man, on the other hand, put thousands of lives on the line for the sake of profit, selling synthetic opioids to unsuspecting patients and defrauding health insurance providers. The racketeering conspiracy to increase his company's profit on opiate painkillers was the wrongest move he ever made, a move that cost him his freedom and half his net worth. John Kapoor. John Kapoor was a pharmaceutical executive, the CEO of Insys Therapeutics, and a majority shareholder in Acorn. John was born in British India and moved to Mumbai later on, where he got his degree in pharmacy from the Institute of Chemical Technology. He also obtained a doctorate in medicinal chemistry after moving to the US on scholarship. Kapoor's greed began with the quest for more money and power. He discovered he could profit from creating a spray delivery system for a generic drug so he could market it as a premium product. To make his plan work, Kapoor hired several top executives who became co-conspirators in the criminal scheme to bribe doctors operating in pain clinics to prescribe Subsys to cancer patients suffering from breakthrough pain, even when medically unnecessary. Kapoor funded Insys and exercised tight control over the corporate decision-making process of the company. Insys made so much money from the drug that a 30-day supply of Subsys cost up to $30,000, generating over $240 million for the company in 2016. Kapoor used speaker programs where he hired physicians to speak to colleagues about the drug, often over a meeting, in educational lunches and dinners. But the true intent of these meetings was to pay bribes and kickbacks to targeted medical practitioners in exchange for their agreement to increase Subsys prescriptions and dosage. And he made sure that whatever profit was made selling drugs was double the amount paid to the doctors. Speakers in these meetings had calculations done to determine if they had positive or negative ROIs. Kapoor went even further by creating the IRC, an Insys pilot program dedicated to obtaining authorization for the direct payment from from insurers and pharmacy benefit managers. Employees of IRC would pose as employees of the practitioners and mislead insurers about the actual diagnosis of patients, claiming they had cancer-related pains even though they did not suffer from such. These tactics came with an almost 100% success rate, as the insurers couldn't see past the lie most of the time. But on May 2, 2019, Kapoor was convicted of engaging in a racketeering conspiracy to increase the profit of the company's opiate painkiller. He was sentenced to 5.5 years in prison and lost over $400 million from his net worth, no longer making him a billionaire. When entrepreneurial prowess combines with radical political activism in the setting of authoritative leadership, what we have is the story of a man who has been fought by his government since he became the wealthiest man in his country. Mikhail Khodorkovsky. His name is Mikhail Khodorkovsky, a man once believed to be the wealthiest in Russia, with a fortune estimated to be worth $15 billion and ranking 16th on the Forbes list of billionaires. Born in 1963, Mikhail's formative years were steeped in the ethos of Soviet industriousness, and he pursued studies at Moscow's Mendeleev Institute of Chemical Technologies. Starting out by establishing a private cafe during the waning days of the Soviet Union, he was able to capitalize on the nation's economic state, beginning his journey in the business world. He co-founded a bank in 1989 before acquiring majority stakes in Yukos, an oil enterprise owned by the state. This was the beginning of his billionaire status, as Yukos thrived under his leadership and became a force in the global oil market. But the moment he started to lend his voice to politics, he became a target for those who believed he wasn't on their side. He became at odds with the Kremlin's inner sanctum, supporting opposition parties and advocating for transparency in government. His business associate was the first to take the hit. Platon Lebedev was arrested on charges of fraud and tax evasion in July 2003. But this didn't scare Mikhail, as he chose to remain in Russia despite the heat. In a couple of months, Mikhail was arrested aboard his private jet. In 2005, Khodorkovsky was convicted of fraud and tax evasion, like his partner. He was given a 9-year prison sentence. But in 2010, he faced additional charges of embezzlement and money laundering, which led to an extension of his incarceration until 2017. Once he was granted pardon in 2013, he left Russia for Switzerland and eventually settled in the UK, where he still champions political reform in Russia. Mikhail's journey from wealth to prison and back to the global stage is one triumph and persistence, unlike what the world has ever seen. Sam wasn't the only crypto criminal the United States had witnessed. This crypto billionaire not only committed criminal activities with his company, he defied the authorities by telling the world he'd rather ask for forgiveness than ask for permission. Changpeng Zhao. Crypto billionaire Changpeng Zhao was prosecuted by the United States government for failure to comply with the rules, costing the mogul up to $4 billion in fines and some jail time. Changpeng is a Chinese-born Canadian businessman who co-founded Binance and served as the CEO before his prosecution. With his $66.6 billion net worth, Changpeng was listed as the 24th richest person in the world and second richest Canadian overall. Once a titan of the crypto sector, Changpeng grew Binance into the world's largest centralized crypto exchange globally. The company was holding assets worth more than $65 billion by the time he stepped down. But his legal troubles began when he was accused of violating U.S. law on an unprecedented scale, when he clearly displayed disregard for Binance's legal obligations. Changpeng is accused of, and pleaded guilty to, willfully failing to implement an effective anti-money laundering program as required by the Bank Secrecy Act. And so in November, Changpeng pleaded guilty to enabling money laundering at Binance. As part of his plea deal with the Department of Justice, Zhao agreed to step down as CEO. He was sentenced to 4 months in prison in April 2024 and then completed his sentence by September that same year. Changpeng agreed to pay up to a $50 million fine in addition to the $4.3 billion in fines and forfeiture that Binance was ordered to pay for violating the U.S. Bank Secrecy Act and sanctions on Iran. Unlike rival exchange FTX, which collapsed when founder Sam Bankman-Fried was criminally charged, Binance has continued to operate. The platform processed a whopping $18.1 trillion worth of trading volume in 2023, according to data from CC Data, a crypto market data firm. One of Asia's richest women committed a crime that requires her life as punishment. As it stands, she may have no way out than to face her death with boldness to pay for her huge crimes against the state. Truong My Lan. Truong My Lan is a Vietnamese businesswoman who is part of the board of directors of her company, Van Thin Phat Group, which she founded some years ago. My Lan is a key player in the Vietnam real estate scene, as well as a major player in Vietnam's largest multi-billion-dollar financial fraud, which consisted of violations of banking regulations. She was accused of raising $1.2 billion from nearly 36,000 investors by issuing bonds illegally through 4 companies. She was also siphoning off $18 billion obtained through fraud and using companies properties under her control to illegally transfer more than $4.5 billion in and out of Vietnam between 2012 and 2022. She laundered billions of dollars, while also orchestrating financial fraud amounting to $12.5 billion through illegal control of a major bank, allowing loans that resulted in losses of $27 billion. Lan's arrest in October 2022 was among the most high-profile in an ongoing anti-corruption drive in Vietnam that has intensified since 2022. She was arrested for using fake loan applications to embezzle more than $12.5 billion from Saigon Joint Stock Commercial Bank, which she had under her control through more than 24 middlemen, inevitably causing a bank run. My Lan's case is considered the largest corruption scandal in Southeast Asia's history. However, she could still avoid execution if she returns $9 billion, or 3/4 of the $12 billion she embezzled. However, it's been extremely difficult for My Lan to raise the money, as most of her assets have been frozen due to connection with fraud. A grim end might be the only thing in sight for the real estate mogul. This next billionaire's crime wasn't linked to financial embezzlement like most of the others. Rather, he was prosecuted for sexually assaulting his stepdaughter, news that sent shockwaves through both the business community and the public. Curtis Johnson. This is Curtis Johnson, born into a family with a name synonymous with corporate success and household cleanliness. Kurt was the chairman of S.C. Johnson & Son, a company that has been under the family's stewardship for generations. Kurt is also a philanthropist, pledging $150 million to Cornell University alongside his siblings to establish the S.C. Johnson College of Business. But trouble came when this philanthropic billionaire was charged with repeatedly sexually assaulting his stepdaughter since she was 12 years old. The family's image was marred, and Kurt was disgraced, but he pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor charge of 4th-degree sexual assault and a felony charge of disorderly conduct. He was sentenced to 4 months in jail and fined $6,000, but he only served 3 months before getting out. The public was outraged by what happened, claiming he deserved more than the sentence given to him. After he was released from jail, Johnson retreated from public life and has kept a pretty low profile ever since. It is a matter of fact that the rich and powerful are not exempt from the strong arm of the law. Even this billionaire watched his family sentenced to jail because they misused their position to oppress the underprivileged. Prakash Parmanand. The Indian-Swiss businessman Prakash Parmanand is a part of Britain's richest family with a net worth of £37 billion. His investments span across oil, gas, banking, and real estate. He was born in India and is the chairman of the Hinduja Group, with residences in Switzerland, the UK, and the UAE. But the dark part of his family is their exploitation of household staff at the Lake Geneva mansion, where the workers are forced to work 18 hours per day for a meager salary. The amount is reported to be $8 for an 18-hour shift, an amount way less than what was required under Swiss law. The Swiss court sentenced 4 members of Prakash's household to 4.5 years in prison, facing criminal charges of human trafficking and exploiting their domestic staff. The charges for human trafficking were eventually dropped due to lack of proof, while they did time for exploitation. Hinduja was also investigated for tax evasion, human trafficking, and residency fraud in Switzerland. However, he was ordered by the Federal Supreme Court of Switzerland to pay 125 million Swiss francs as financial collateral. Considering wannabe innovators in the world of medicine, this lady not only disgraced herself, but also had her net worth cut in half as a result of her misleading idea that sought to steal millions of dollars from investors. Elizabeth Holmes. Elizabeth Holmes was once the youngest self-made female billionaire, according to Forbes, with an estimated net worth of $4.5 billion in 2014 at the age of 30, a net worth she supposedly amassed upon the fraudulent activities of her medical company named Theranos. Holmes was an ambitious woman in Silicon Valley, looking to secure high-end investments for her company. She claimed to have developed a technology that could detect hundreds of diseases with just a drop of someone's blood. However, it turned out that her blood testing machine, called the Edison, was only being used to analyze a fraction of the blood samples being processed by the company. However, when it was used, the results were grossly inaccurate. By January 2022, a jury in San Jose convicted Holmes of fraud and conspiracy over the false claims she made to investors about Theranos' medical devices. She served 5 months of her 11-year sentence, and she was ordered to pay $452 million in restitution to her investors. The youngest self-made billionaire, who drew comparisons to Steve Jobs and was known as a once-in-a-generation innovator, became one of the world's most disappointing leaders, according to Fortune. What do you think about these billionaires and their sentences? Does the punishment fit the crime? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and before you leave, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Wealth Corner so you don't miss the next ones.